recorded live from the secret underground lair of Crimson Cowl Comics and Collectibles. This is the Crimson Cowl Comic Club Podcast.
The sparkle is everywhere. I'm Anthony.
I'm Kirby.
I'm Katie.
I'm Jim.
I'm Eric. And I'm Brandon.
Welcome to a Crimson Cowl Comic Club creator interview, and we are welcoming back the writer and creator of Dismay Avenue, Tales from Town City, and the upcoming Gallows Man issue 3, Brandon Ingram. How's it going, Brandon?
Doing pretty good. Thank you guys for having me. It
Of
was
course.
fun last time. I'm happy to be here this time. We had a bunch of catching up stuff before this. It was great. And I don't mean to get us derailed or anything, but I do want to say congrats to Anthony.
Oh,
I had mentioned it before for the upcoming debut of his first comic. I'm really happy for him. That's awesome.
well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. But yeah, this one here, it's fun to do another creator interview where I'm not being questioning. I'm not the one questioning myself. This time, I just get to sit back and relax. So the last time we had you on, it was to promote another Kickstarter, and that was for the Tales from Town City. And when we had that interview, people can go back into the feed and check that out on the YouTube channel. You talked about that and how it's a spin-off from the Gallows Man and that you didn't need to read that one here. But now we are here to talk about the Gallows Man proper. So what you did for us here, you gave us some PDFs for issue number 1 and 2. So we got caught up if we didn't get that in the Kickstarter in the last round. But we're here to advertise issue number 3 that is set to come out on Kickstarter from September 10th through October 9th, I believe. And that campaign, by the time you see this video and the time of this recording, we're now in the future, and you can go to Kickstarter. You can go there right now and start, pledging. You can sit back, relax, watch the interview, and find out what it is you're going to be supporting. So let's have you give the pitch on what, not just issue 3, but what the Gallows Man is in general.
So the easiest way, this is usually the thing I say at conventions. When someone sees Gallows Man, I say, Gallows Man is Adam West Batman meets Inglourious Basterds. After like 2 years of conventions, I finally narrowed that down. It used to be a lot longer, like 2 sentences, but you gotta, and I'll probably get it shorter eventually. I'll probably eventually get it to like the McDonald's menu where it's just a number. I just say number 1. They're like,
Sounds good. I'll take that.
Yeah. And then I'll have to like get it even shorter where it's just like a look. I just look at them.
Yeah, just like telepathically, it's just like they already know. So
yeah. But yeah, so Gallows Man is Adam West Batman meets Inglourious Basterds. It's set in the 1940s. It's golden age superhero. It's fun campiness, a lot of fun campiness to it. That's a big part of why I wanted to do this, is to just add some fun, some levity to some superhero stuff. I love me some serious books. I love Tom King stuff, but sometimes I don't want to cry, or I don't want to question, especially with Tom King books. War is very bad. Sometimes I don't want to think about that.
Yeah.
Sometimes I just want to laugh, have a good time. So that's ultimately what I tried doing with the Gallows Man. There are some stuff you can look into as you're reading of like satirizing, such as like desensitization to violence in our culture, stuff like that. But you don't have to do that. You can just enjoy the book. But yeah, 1940s golden age, fun campiness, like Adam West Batman sort of stuff with over the top Tarantino movie violence sort of thing.
yeah, you definitely get the vibe not only in the dialogue and the G Willikers and things like that. You get your pows and your blams and your onomatopoeias and stuff. So yeah, I think that really does capture perfectly of the Batman 66 and Inglourious Basterds of just putting a darker visual lens on the lighter comedy script type of deal. So what we're going to do here is that we're going to cut to the trailer. We talked about this in the last sit down with Brandon on how hilarious his presentations have been on Kickstarter. We were new to him with the last one, and the trailer was probably one of the best things, right up there with Ryan Brown Kickstarter trailers, where you can see the person, just wants to put as much comedy in there as possible, and it's not just like, oh yeah, here's a book I'm doing, and you can check it out here. Yeah, you have some production values, some acting and stuff like that. So let's cut to the trailer for The Gallows Man, issue number 3.
Back and better than ever, it's the Gallows Man. Witness action, humor, grotesque violence, and everything in between as the Gallows Man and his team try to stop the Nazi threat that has infiltrated their city. My producers are saying it's Adam West Batman meets Inglorious Bastards. Whatever the hell that means. Well, what are you waiting for? Help support this series by backing the Gallows Man numbers 1 through 3 over on Kickstarter today. There, I did the ad. Will you let me go now? Okay, I'll say the stupid stuff. Baby, get back. Have you ever seen a dead body? No cap, these chicken nuggies be bussin', gang. Would you like to see a dead body? Morpheus, Dorpheus, Orpheus, go eat some walruses. Someone's getting a visit from the BB monster. There, I said it all. When will you let me go?
So there was the trailer for issue number 3, once again on Kickstarter, September 10th through October 9th of 2024. Let's get into the meat of it all. And this idea of The Gallows Man started as a screenplay, as you were kind of challenging yourself of just like getting back into writing and wanting to write screenplays. So can you kind of talk about how that all started to lead us to what we're reading today?
Yeah. Essentially, the origin of me writing The Gallows Man was I was in the nursing program at the time. I was 2 semesters away from graduating, and I was in it for the wrong reason. I think if you're going to have a career in anything, it's one thing to have a job in something. You can hate your job and you're just doing it for the money and your focus is over here. If you're going to have a career in something, you got to have a passion for it. I didn't have a passion for nursing. I'm thankful for everyone that does. It's a much needed job, very underappreciated job. I just didn't have a passion for it. I was in it for not amazing pay, but pretty decent pay, as well as job security. You're pretty much always going to get hired somewhere. Nurses are always needed. But that was the reasons I was in it, a career thing. And I was just miserable. So eventually I was just like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I don't even have a backup plan, but I just got to like withdraw from the program. It's too much. So I withdrew, and like at that point I was like, man, like I feel like awful about myself. Like I feel like I got like a quitter's mentality. Like I just quit this thing. I was 2 semesters away from graduating from and stuff. And I was like, okay, I've been writing short screenplays and stuff like this. Let me challenge myself. Like I feel like a quitter. Let me challenge myself. I want to write a feature-length script. At that point, the longest script I'd written was like a 40-page short script. So let me write a 90 to 120-page feature-length script. And basically, I started getting to work. A big thing with the superhero thing was I've always loved superheroes and comics and stuff, read them growing up and all that. At that time, this was kind of late 2017. It was like October 2017. Infinity War just came out 5, 6 months ago, sort of thing. You're at the peak of superhero media to where Netflix, Hulu, all these people are buying up all these random properties, all these random superhero properties, and it's a huge saturated market. Superheroes are the biggest they've ever been. Half the stuff is mid because it's just like, oh, they hear buzzword superhero. Let's make something with that. Um, and I was like, okay, I want to do a superhero thing because I love superheroes. But since it's so saturated, since we're at the peak of saturation here, I want to do something different. Doesn't have to be crazy different, but I want to do something like original that's not out there now. I'm not saying Gallows Man is like a completely original idea. You have stuff like The Tick. You have stuff like Flaming Carrot that satirize superhero stuff or have that like golden age jovialness to it sort of thing. But you don't see that nowadays much anymore. And so I was like, okay, I want to do that sort of thing, but let's just add insane violence into it, insane cartoon violence into it. Um, and essentially the initial thing was the initial thought was, okay, I hadn't watched Adam West Batman at that point, but I've seen clips here and there. I saw the bomb over the head running and stuff. We all saw that meme, that gif. Um, I was like, okay, I want to do like essentially it's like, what if you had Adam West Batman where in the show he goes for a punch and right before it connects, it says pow, it says blam, whatever, right before it connects. You don't see it actually connect in the show. And then after it says the pow or blam, you see the aftermath that's in the show. You usually see the bad guy on the ground or he's already in cuffs or whatever it is. And my thought was, okay, you have that, you have the about to connect, then pow. But then the aftermath is like something bloody or horrific. Like the aftermath is a guy falls and he breaks his neck on a desk. The aftermath in issue 3, there's some insane aftermaths. But it was all this stuff where it's like just over the top, violent aftermath sort of stuff. So that was the initial thing. And so from there, it was like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to set my mind to it. And pretty much from like mid-October to mid-November, for a whole month, I would, every few days while I was looking for a job, I would go to McDonald's, connect to their Wi-Fi, and just type away. Just type away to by the end of mid-November of 2017, first draft of the screenplay was done. And I felt great, especially like a month prior, I was like, I feel like a quitter. I feel like a loser, like that sort of thing. But but yeah, it was such a great feeling. And then over the years, tweaked it, had like different drafts and stuff. And then I think it was around 2020. By that point, I had been working with artists on like Dismay Avenue 1 and Dismay Avenue number 2, those comics. And it was around 2020, I was like, man, I really want to do something with the Gallows Man. And then I don't know why it took me so long. I was like, oh, wait, I've been working on comics for almost a year now. Like, why don't I rework it to be a comic? And then I went back through the screenplay and was like, oh, there's a perfect end for issue 1. There's a perfect end for issue 2. There's a perfect end for issue 3. And then it was tweaking it to where it worked for a comic, but it was like, this works perfectly. So that was kind of like how the Gallows Man became a comic sort of thing.
And you had mentioned the working with artists for Dismay Avenue and everything. Now, looking at your lineup for the Gallows Man, you've got Helen Bolton, you've got Thomas Tikas, and Rick Alves. And what I've noticed in the little bios that you've provided online through the Kickstarters and everything, they're all international artists. We have from the UK, we have Greece, and Brazil. I'm real curious just how these people came onto the project and how you got connected with them, with you being what I assume is in the States here with us.
Yeah, yeah. With Helen, she was kind of the first of those that I had ever contacted and got connected with. I actually worked with her on a story in issue 2 of Dismay Avenue. It was a 15, 16 page horror story, where she did like a Dr. Seuss type art style and stuff. And I was like, oh, this is perfect. And then I finished that, and shortly after, had done the comic script for Gallows Man, and I looked at her art style, and I'd seen her art before that as well, and she like adapted her art to that Dismay Avenue 2 story for the Dr. Seuss art. I was like, man, she's very like malleable with her art. I wonder if she could like lean a little more towards here. So I was like, hey, I'm wanting to make this comic. Could I pay you to do like some commission work, just some test pages sort of thing to see if you're right. But first, actually, I remember what it was now. I told her that. Then I was like, here's the script. Uh, it's up to you if you want to do this. You do not have to do this, because I know some people, even though Nazis are the bad guy in the script, some people might be a little more reserved to not work on that sort of thing, or some of the over the top violent sort of thing. So I was like, look at the script. You make that decision if you want to or not. It's completely up to you, sort of thing. She read the script. She liked it. She sent the test pages back. I was like, this is a perfect fit. Like, would or so last time, do you want to do this? Do you want to do issue one? And she was like, I'm down. So I hired her for issue one, and it just spun from there. And Rick, I'm trying to think how I got into contact with Rick. I think I've been following Rick's Instagram for a little while, and I've always liked his art style. He has it's it's similar to Scotty Young's art style. If you go on his Instagram and look at some of his art, he has kind of a Scotty Young type art style. Um, and I always liked it. So I was like, oh, like,
I assume this is his art right here that we're looking at.
yeah. That's the issue 2 variant cover that he did. And yeah, it was one of those things where it's like, would you be interested in doing the variant cover? He was one of the last people I reached out to. Thomas actually reached out to me. Um, I think he like saw my stuff. He was doing a series. I forgot what the company's called. They're still ongoing, but he was doing a series called Burlap. He was doing the covers for a series called Burlap. And I think around the time that series ended, or it was like 6 or 7 issues in, he had messaged me. It was like, hey, like I'm looking for cover work. I've seen some of your call for artists sort of thing. Um, would you be interested in me possibly doing a cover? I can show you my portfolio and stuff. So looked at his stuff. I was like, okay, I think it could work. So hired him, and he did. He's the main cover artist. He's done issue 1, 2, 3. He's also done 4. Like I commissioned him to do the 3rd and 4th cover like 2 years ago, sort of thing. Yeah. So issue 1 cover, that's some of Thomas's work right there.
Very cool. So yeah, I thought that was just real unique of just seeing, all like international creators and everybody coming together to do
Oh
this
yeah.
here. So one other thing I wanted to bring up here, and we'll if anybody else has any questions, we'll start opening things up. But you talked about the influences for Gallows Man with with your elevator pitch, and your down to saying no words so that people just have the pitch in their head. But just going through, is there any influences when it comes to anything that you haven't mentioned yet that kind of drove you to just really pour the energy into this writing? So any other floating influences around there?
I'd say comedy influences are one thing. I wouldn't really say they entirely like their comedy style influenced the Gallows Man comedy style, but I mean, to some degree, those influences rub off on you, sort of thing. Like, I'm not saying this is in any way the Gallows Man comedy style, but I've always loved like Norm Macdonald. I love his comedy. A lot of great stuff. Even like his album where it's like essentially like radio plays, like radio skit sort of stuff. There's a great Fantastic Four one. I recommend people listen to that. It's basically like they all get their name, like Reed gives everyone their name, and then he's like, and I'll be Mr. Fantastic. They're like, wait,
Yeah.
what Why are you Mr. Fantastic? And it just goes on from there. It's hilarious.
And I'm Thing. You called me Thing and you became Mr. Fantastic.
It's great. But like yeah, Norm Macdonald, not just Gallows Man. I do a lot of comedy writing now for comics and different series and stuff. Norm Macdonald's a big influence. Kevin Smith, I know people can be 50-50 on Kevin Smith. Kevin Smith is a big influence on me regarding comedy dialogue. I mean, love him or hate him, the guy can write. He can, I mean, like Clerks 1, 2, and I like 3. I know some people were so on 3, but like those movies are just conversations and they're interesting. It's just these conversations, but they're interesting, they're funny. So Kevin Smith's a big influence regarding comedy writing. Um, and this person is very divisive for stuff that happened a few years ago. But I would say Max Landis is kind of an influence. I'm not gonna say he's not, even though actions he did sort of thing. He was influential because he wrote some movies. He wrote Chronicle. He wrote it's actually a really funny romantic comedy. I think it's Mr. Right. It's got Anna Kendrick and I
And
forgot the other guy.
he's
It's
from
a
Iron Man
girl
2.
falling in love with a hitman sort of thing.
Yeah, it's
It's
what's his
pretty
face
funny.
from Iron Man 2, the
Yes, Sam
Hammer.
Rockwell. That's what it is. Yeah. He wrote some of those, and this was whenever I was getting into writing feature screenplays and stuff. I read some of those, and Chronicle, like I like Chronicle as a movie. Reading the script is also really interesting, like the writing style of reading Chronicle, and as well as he's wrote some comics as well. He wrote a
Superman.
Superman comic, which was basically the first time Superman met Joker. Like Joker came into Metropolis. It was just a one issue thing that was really interesting. And he also wrote uh, Superman American Alien,
Yeah.
which not my favorite Superman story, but I probably put it like top 10, top 15 because it shows you like the human side of Clark. Because yes, Clark is alien, but his whole life he's been raised by these humans, so you kind of connect with them a little bit more there. So I'll say at least with Max Landis's writing, he was pretty influential. I read a decent bit of his stuff. Um, there's probably more people. Those are the 3 that come off the top of my head, though, with Norm Macdonald, Kevin Smith, and Max Landis.
Cool. If anybody else had any questions, feel free to jump in there. We'll throw those in there.
I was curious if there's going to be any side story put out. I know you got little shorts in each of the first 2 Gallows Man, probably also in the third one of Newsboy. But are you going to have a separate comic, kind of like origin story with Newsboy or anything like that in the future that you're planning on doing?
So it'll be a while. I won't say like too much on this. Like Gallows Man, this miniseries is 4 issue miniseries, even though each issue is like 2 to 3 times the size of a regular issue. 4 issue miniseries, but I do have like I think right when I wrapped up Gallows Man #2 is when a really good sequel miniseries idea came to my mind. That is very different, very weird, but funny. That Newsboy is a pretty big figure in. Like he gets equal, if not more, page time than Gallows Man sort of thing. So I can't say too much on it, but that is a possible plan in the future.
Cool. Katie?
Yeah. So, um, and we talked about like creatively like writing reading stuff, but for work, I also do professional writing. And I was wondering, what for you is the hardest part or maybe the least fun part of the creative process?
Let me see. I think the hardest part, now I'll get to a part that I just don't like, but the hardest part is simply just sitting down and starting.
Hmm.
Um, because like I can once I get started, I can type all day. I can just type all
Totally.
day sort of thing. But it's just like, I don't even know, maybe it's a motivation thing, but just simply like sitting down and just
Mhm.
starting. After 5 to 10 minutes, it's golden. I'm good to go. It's just for some reason starting is always a pain for, and I've talked with other writers and
Mhm.
stuff, and that's usually a big thing for them is like, yeah, just actually sitting down, putting the phone away, putting this away, putting that away,
Mhm.
and just sitting
Sure.
down and focusing and not having the TV on in the background or whatever. I think, and it just might be a me thing, but I think that could be a our modern culture type thing where we're just
Oh, sure.
surrounded by distraction and just negating all that, like putting a wall, putting blinders around all that can be hard sometimes.
Yeah, I gotcha. No, it's definitely true. And I have moments where I'm like, okay, we're going to be productive, get stuff done. And now it's like an hour and a half doom scrolling. And now
Yep,
I feel worse when I hear you.
100%.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Aside from timesheets, which drive me crazy, if I could get AI to do my timesheets for me, that would be cool. I think probably the part that I find the hardest with is like the dichotomy between this is the best thing I've ever written and this is absolute garbage. What was I thinking? I can't salvage this. And usually it tends to lean more towards that. That part's hard. And it unfortunately there's not a great answer for it other than, well, you just have to practice and give it your best. No, cool. Good,
That's
good,
ultimately
good
because
question.
that's a good point. That's ultimately something that I have to deal with. I think I've gotten to a point where I, at least with comedy writing, I'm not saying I'm
Mm-hmm.
like a great comedy writer, but it's the thing I feel like I can flow into, jump into the easiest.
Oh,
Whereas
sure.
sometimes I like writing all genres, but sometimes other
Mm-hmm.
genres can be tougher just because I haven't written so much of it or whatever it may be. To where, I mean, there's
Mm-hmm.
a romance thing I want to write that I have
Oh,
started
cool.
writing and stuff, but there are sometimes with stuff like that where I get that feeling of like like it just doesn't stack up to like what I'm
Yep.
used to writing sort of thing. And it's not good entirely, but sometimes I'll fall back on my other stuff as a crutch where it's like, I'm
Oh,
just
sure.
not feeling this. I'm gonna drop it. Time to write some funny books. Ha 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 ha. Like or write horror. Ha ha ha. Like it's
Understandable.
the plus side is writing is getting done. The downside is I'm
Yes.
using those other books, those other scripts, those other stories as a crutch whenever I get stuck on this one thing or dislike this one thing.
Mm. That's a great point. Yeah, true. And it's again balancing like, should if I work on something else, will that give my brain time to process and feel more comfortable, or is it
Yeah.
I'm avoiding this when I should really be confronting it? No, I got you. That's a really good point. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
I'm going to share some interior art from the first issue, and while you do that, you won't have to comment on what I'm showing. I'm just going to do that in the background. But if you can kind of talk about your evolution of writing, because this is the third issue of Gallows Man. Real quick though, was this all written in a stretch, or have you taken it issue by issue with the time between the Kickstarters? That's one thing I'm curious on.
The series as a whole has been done, like the comic series has been done since like 2020. As we keep going with each issue, as Helen is working or right before Helen works, there'll be like some tweaks I do here and there. Like Gallows Man 3, there are some dialogue tweaks, or even like there was some stuff where it's like, this feels a little cramped. Let's make it instead of one page, 2 pages sort of thing. Which is why Gallows Man number 3 is 57 pages of story. Uh, but it's just one of those things where the story has been done forever, but then there are sometimes edits as roughs come in, as rough sketches come in, where it's like, okay, actually let's tweak this a little bit. But it's never anything minor. The story as a whole, how it goes, has been the same since 2020.
Cool, cool. And Jim, I don't know if I saw your hand going up right before I
Yep.
started that. Jump in there.
Yeah. when you talked about getting your artists together for this, I was curious how much of the character design, the color, everything did you have in mind, or did she come up with everything on her own? Because I thought it was just awesome. The color and everything was great, fit the tone so well. I wonder where the costume and color design came from.
Yeah, thank you. So ultimately for Gallows Man, it was a mix of a long old public domain hero named Hangman. And so it was changing that design a decent bit for this in terms of the colors, in terms of the rope belts, the noose necklace sort of thing, like all that sort of stuff. Um, so I basically gave her descriptions of all these little details, like the noose part here. Newsboy was one thing where I remember going online because the original thing in the original script, it's like a 10, 11-year-old boy in like an executioner outfit sort of thing. And it was one of those where I was like, okay, like how do I get this just right? Because there's different looks to executioners. Because I wrote it in the script, but then I was like, okay, for look wise, I looked on Google. I was like, executioner outfit. There's all these Halloween costumes and stuff. And there's a lot of different variations of executioner looks. So it was one of those things where I was like, okay, I'll take this image, use this pants or these boots, but use this one, use like the mask, but also cut it out a little bit more. And it was like 4 or 5 Google images where I was like, use this, don't use this, use that, don't use that, and then adding some description here and there. And then she sent back, which is actually a sticker. There's a Gallows Man one or Gallows Man and Newsboy sticker that were available in the previous Kickstarters, and you can also get them as add-ons in these. But those stickers were actually the first concept art of Gallows Man and Newsboy. And it was the first concept art, and it just looked so good where I was like, let's just do stickers of this. Like it looks great. So yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, and I liked especially like the characters like we came up with like the parody of on Walrus and Jackal.
Oh yeah.
Original villains there. That was fun.
Thank you. Yeah. Obviously, like Walrus is like a penguin type villain. And Jackal was one of those things where it's a lot of these names, and this plays into a Tales from Town City story. There's a 5-page Tales from Town City story. In Spider-Man comics, there's all these animal names. And it's not just Spider-Man comics. There's other comics that are all these villains have these animal names and stuff. And sometimes the names just don't match up at all with the person. And Jackal is an example of that. You barely see him in issue 1 of Gallows Man. You see him hanging. But in Tales from Town City, I really leaned into that in one of the stories where the mortician, he's cremating these villain bodies, and while he's doing it, he's roasting the bodies, but he's also verbally like roasting them, where it's like, yeah, your name makes no sense at all. Like call yourself Jackal. You don't even look like a jackal. Maybe you laugh like a jackal. But if that's the case, that's also bad because that's pretty embarrassing. It's like all this stuff. It was like spoofing some of that like Spider-Man and other comics, like the animal villain stuff. But yeah.
And you had mentioned the add-ons, so if anybody else has any questions, I'll set up this next segment, and then we can jump into those. Talking about the add-ons and the tiers and the rewards and all that kind of fun stuff. Now we're talking about Gallows Man #3. Let's say we have some new viewers, new listeners coming into the show here, didn't check out the last ones, they missed out on those first 2 issues. I assume we can get a hold of those through this Kickstarter. So if you can kind of talk
Yes.
about what is available on the Gallows Man #3 Kickstarter.
So with this Kickstarter, there's tiers for people coming back to the series who've already read issue 2 or issue 1, 2, read Tales from Town City. there's tiers for them as well as tiers for newcomers, basically like catch-up bundle sort of stuff. So if you haven't read it before, any of the Gallows Man or Tales from Town City, I gotta pronounce that right. I think I added a T at the end of there. Uh, but uh, with that catch-up bundle, you can get Gallows Man 1, Gallows Man 2, Gallows Man 3, Tales from Town City #1. Like there's all these catch-up bundles as well as digital bundles as well. If you don't want to buy it physically, you can get these comics digitally. And all my other comics, all my previous comics, if there isn't a tier for it, it's in the add-on section. Like Dismay Avenue 1, Dismay Avenue 2, the variant covers of those, that sort of stuff is in the add-on section. So all my stuff is available through there, whether you're continuing the ride of like the Gallows Man or my comics, or if it's the first time you're coming in, sort of thing.
Excellent. Anybody else have something to add in there? Feel free to jump in. I'm not sure if someone Kirby.
Yeah, I love Gallows Man. I know I'm talking about other things also, but I'm gonna kind of give a little promotion for you for your Instagram. If you want to check out some wonderful things he's written and stuff like that, go check it out. But thanks to algorithms and everything, last time we spoke, I didn't realize that you put out Danny's Journal, 5 episodes.
Oh,
reading Danny's journal.
yeah.
And so yesterday I went through those and watched those, and it was a wonderful story. I love how that worked out. But I was curious if by chance you know anything about Axe Cop at all. It's basically a father that took his kids' writings, turned it into an animated series and stuff. And I was thinking with Danny's journal, it would be kind of fun seeing a little Danny as a narrator, the way you use the way he wrote about himself while he was writing the book and stuff like that, throwing that in there and twisting it up in a style of kind of like Axe Cop like that. But it's like with that first journal that you wrote, you could easily turn that into a nice little 5-page comic and make it kind of like that, where Danny's kind of like the crypt keeper, narrator of the story and all that stuff. And you were talking about possibly bringing a second volume into that, and it could easily lead on to another 5 comics or something. But yeah, if you should definitely check out his Instagram. There's some very wonderful writings in there and all kinds of neat things. But
thank you. Well, with the Danny's journal thing, for those that might not know, it was I have it here somewhere. I'd have to run and go get it, but it's a book I published when I was 10 years old. I was big into horror. I've always been big into horror, but I was 10 years old and I wrote this story called Danny's Journal. And the reason it's called Danny's Journal is when I initially wrote it, it was in like a one of those flip pads sort of thing. And the front of it was like a bunch of smiley faces and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, like, what if this was the journal of this guy named Danny? And basically the story is it's a mishmash ripoff of Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Joyride. It's this guy who at the very beginning he's in like a psychiatric facility, and he's like, oh, like all this bad stuff happened to me. Well, let me tell you what happened. And then the rest of the story is what got him in here, sort of thing. Yeah, it's bad. It's entertaining though. That's the thing.
It's not bad.
It's a 10-year-old Brandon that had wrote this. What's funny about it, I mean, there's funny stuff with it because there's some stuff where it's like this 10-year-old wrote it. What's really funny about it is I had horrible handwriting back then, and how this publishing thing, this was like through my school, paid like $50 for them to make you 2 copies of this thing. It was a ripoff. $50 for this, it's a ripoff. But they print these copies, and my handwriting was awful. And it's not like you typed it, you like wrote it out on these lines and then they printed it. So I went to my mom with my story all written out. I was like, hey, could you write this for me? Like, it's all written, but can you just transcribe it basically? And the funny part about it, I mentioned in those videos, my mom clearly had to read all of this and she's writing all of this. And she likely, at various points, was probably thinking, oh no, we might need to get Brandon some help because this is our 10-year-old son writing some somewhat horrific things. Uh, so that's the funny part to me. I want to, I probably will soon because I've thought about it recently. I want to like sit down and ask my mom, like, what were your thoughts when you were writing this sort of thing?
And she probably looked at it, just it was like, is this in blood? Did he write this in blood?
Yeah, you should do a little podcast style episode or something,
Yeah.
sitting down talking about it with her.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear her opinions on it.
But like Kirby had mentioned, like I think it maybe in one of those videos I had mentioned possibly doing like a sequel to it or whatever. And I would like to do that one day because it's just a weird like writing experiment for me almost of this thing I wrote at 10 years old, which is like in quality, but also it's like a 10-year-old writing this is also really weird. But basically just picking up from it, either rewriting it and putting out a short story or a first issue sort of thing, or just simply taking it like it is, scanning it and putting it out that way, and then me writing a sequel. Like I'm 27 right now, so me writing a sequel 15 to 20 years later of adult Brandon writing this. I've thought about possibly doing that.
Well, this is a great segue after just kind of talking about your mom's involvement in that story, because I happened to pull some of the praise. Now we've read issues 1 and 2. We've read the Tales stories and stuff like that. But you happen to get some really great critical reviews. So I have a couple screen caps I wanted to share here. One of them from Grant Morrison, not that one. Well, I can say it is a comic book. I mean that right there is a blurb that you can just frame, and I'm sure that inspired you time and time again.
It's a raving review right there.
And then there's one from the writer's mom, that one, saying, boy, do I feel sorry for whoever had to raise this so-called writer, quote unquote.
Yes.
And then you also had a rating system. I pulled another reviews for the Gallows Man. Yeah, you got a 5-star review from not the Gallows Man. So that was pretty big. And then even, from a local barista, you got a 4-star review. So that's, nothing to shake a stick at or whatever the term is. So
Yeah, these are all like, this is how you base picking up a comic or not.
exactly.
You base it on Grant Morrison, not that one. You base it on the writer's mom, base it on a local barista, and you base it on not the character from whatever book you're doing.
Exactly.
And whatever they say, whatever number they give, since they simply said it, good or bad, it's worth picking up.
Yes. Excellent. Any lingering questions here before we kind of bring it in for the final little Kickstarter push, Kirby?
Is there going to be like a tinfoil hat level?
There won't be, unfortunately. I did try doing the tinfoil hats at a convention before because someone had brought that idea up to me, and I got to the convention. I had the tinfoil. I had the Reynolds tinfoil, so I had some good tinfoil. But the issue was, I then thought, like, will people let me touch their head? This feels very weird because I'd be reaching across the table. I'd be holding their head, wrapping around and stuff. I was like, I don't know. If I do this, I need to come with like pre-made tinfoil hat sort of thing. I need to get a mannequin head and just wrap it and then just go from there. So there won't be in the Kickstarter. Maybe in a future convention, if I get me a little mannequin head, I'll come with some pre-made tinfoil hats.
Buy a hat and get 2 free coupons.
Yeah.
Excellent. So I'm going to show off the cover options here for issue number 3. So as I show those images, if you can kind of set up our audience on what to expect from this issue, with kind of, even if the people didn't check out 1 and 2, something that's vague enough to kind of promote what you're actually selling as the main drive for with issue number 3.
So ultimately with issue number 3, if you've read issue 1 and 2, the big series component is Gallows Man and Newsboy trying to stop this Nazi threat that has infiltrated their city. Not to get into too many spoilers, but issue 2 doesn't go amazing for them. Issue 3 picks up literally right after issue 2. Issue 1, you had issue 1, then issue 2. There was 3 months in between issue 1 and 2. Issue 3 is literally like 20 seconds later after issue 2, sort of thing. I highly recommend people picking up issue 3. Picking up all these, but issue 3 is like it's 57 pages of story. So there's a lot of stuff going on here. You have escaping this thing. You have like high flying action in this escape. You have car chase. That was a fun part of this, introducing our version of the Batmobile and stuff, which is on the first cover and stuff like that. It even has the little hood ornament. It's like a small little noose sort of thing, just tiny details here and there. It's just a mix of just craziness and fun stuff in this book. And any of the crazy violent stuff you saw in issues 1 and 2, there's definitely more in issue 3. Maybe as much, if not more. Depends on your mileage, sort of thing.
And with having the option to pick up those back issues as well as your other work, is there anything else that you want to advertise that's part of this Kickstarter that maybe you had some merchandise options in the last one, but let's talk about what's available for this one if you have anything.
With this one, there's the books, obviously, Gallows Man 1, 2, 3, as well as the variant covers for those, as well as Dismay Avenue 1, Dismay Avenue 2, variant covers for those as well. PDF copies of all the comics if you just want to read digital. Bookmarks, there's Gallows Man 1 and 2 bookmark. There's a Gallows Man bookmark where he says, "Remember, kids, reading is power." Then there's a Newsboy bookmark that says, "Remember, kids, littering is the truest form of villainy." And we have another bookmark that'll be for issue 3. It's Bertwald the Butler. He's also known as Masked Butler. He has a bigger role in issue 3. You actually see him fighting and doing stuff in issue 3. But he's holding a kitchen knife and he's looking all happy like the other bookmarks. I'm pretty sure, I forgot, we made it like a month ago. Pretty sure he says like, "Remember, kids, eat your vegetables," all while he's holding a kitchen knife. The dumb fun stuff. And you can also get stickers, Newsboy sticker, Gallows Man sticker, and the big items with the Kickstarter, they're limited.
Ooh, yes,
some original art for from Thomas Tikas. He's the main cover artist. You can get original art bundles, which is basically comes with this as well as like all the books and like all the add-on stuff. It's like a bunch of stuff it comes with. But yeah, so original art bundle. This one is Newsboy and Gallows Man sporting a "I Heart Town City" shirt, and the heart is a noose. It's made of a noose. You got Town City in the background, so that's that one. And then there's this one, which is them. Sorry, I've got a light shining, and this is in protective. This is in a Mylar sleeve, so that's why it's very shiny. But they're basically dishing out their brand of justice. Got a guillotine going, and it's not about to be a good day for that guy.
No.
But yeah, those will be available. Those are definitely, like, if you want these, probably try to get it day one, because You never know when these can get snatched up, and it's limited. It's original art. This isn't, hey, I got 50 copies of this sort of thing. And it also has the preliminary sketches that come with them on the back and stuff. So you can kind of see Thomas's original work process sort of thing. And these are also, I'm awful at remembering the paper types, but it's not cardstock, but it's a heavier paper than like your standard Bristol board. It's like right under cardstock, right above standard Bristol paper sort of thing. So I guess just heavier Bristol paper sort of thing.
And
are you doing any early bird stuff for the first 24 hours or anything that we need to know
Not
about?
for this one. Not
Okay.
for this one. I thought about it and I was trying to think of what would be some good stuff. Might do that for like a issue 4 type thing, but this one very much like anyone can get it at any time. The definitely help the first like 48 hours of the Kickstarter. Like people don't wait the last 2 days sort of thing if you want to support this. But these are the two things I would say are probably like a time sensitive sort of thing.
And in the final version, I will put the some other photos of those up on the screen there to kind of
Thank you.
player and stuff. And because of those being limited original art pieces, I can most likely just drop this episode, the day before, as soon as possible, basically, since everything you've talked about and promoted is all part of your social media and everything. So
Thank you.
that way, if people are watching this and realize, oh, well, when I wake up on September 10th, I'm going to wait, you get that pre-launch page signed up for and everything. And then you can try to, have an opportunity to get that original art. Yeah. Cool. So yeah, I think that will do it. We want to wish you luck on that. We are excited to have you back. You are one to reach out to us, which most of the time we're reaching out to people that we know and we followed, and so it was just one of those things that seeing your message pop up, and then I was delighted to see it again and seeing that you're coming back for more of the Gallows Man here. So everything that you've been doing along with Helen, Thomas, and Rick, if anybody wants to check it out, just go to the Gallows Man, type that into the Kickstarter. The links will be into the YouTube notes as well, so you can just find it right there. And then any other social media that you want to plug for Dismay Comics, feel free to throw that in there now, Brandon.
The plus side with when I set up my social media stuff back in 2019 is I didn't have to add numbers or anything. Dismay Comics was available on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. So if you just type in Dismay Comics on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, you can reach those. As well as YouTube. I have a YouTube channel. I always forget to promote this. It's more just a fun thing that me and my friend do. But we do a podcast, Dismay Comics podcast, where we're both two novice comic writers, inspiring comic writers and stuff, or aspiring. That just shows the noviceness right there. Can't even get the right word. But basically our writing processes, as well as we just shoot the breeze sometimes, just talk about whatever's on our mind, dive into deep topics sometimes of Batman's poop and stuff like that. It's very deep topics within that podcast.
Would that be called guano?
Yeah. There we go. See, we need your expertise on something like that.
And that's why, Jim is our bat poop expert on the Crimson Cowl Comic Club. Excellent. So yeah, definitely check that out. Check out the Kickstarter. And that was a great tip that you mentioned about grabbing, the Dismay Comics handle early, because after we met, I had to settle for Dismay Comics 14 when I signed up for it. So it just shows that just how popular this thing has gotten since you signed up for that original one. So
yeah, there's 13 ahead of you.
Exactly. I slept on it, but here we are. So yeah, once again, we wish you good luck and success, and you've had successful Kickstarters prior to this, which is why we're here talking about these comics. And They're a lot of fun, and highly recommend people to check it out. Check out that trailer, which I'll play after the show again too. Go to the Kickstarter and dive into the Gallows Man. So thank you, Brandon, for coming on the show again.
Thank you guys. Thank y'all. It's always like you had mentioned, like I reached out to you guys. The reason I reached out is because I had a great time last time. Like I'll go ahead and admit, I'm not trying to be mean to certain shows and stuff. There are some shows, not a lot, but there are some shows that like I did one time and then it's like, future stuff I might not do.
Yeah.
And then I don't do. But you guys were a lot of fun. I liked last time. This time has been great. So thank y'all.
That's
Of
excellent.
course.
Every time we have a creator on the show, the invite's always extended to come back, not only if to promote future work, but also if you read the latest graphic novel about Batman's poop or something, you just need an outlet to talk about it outside of your own personal channel. That guests are always welcome to come in and join in on the club episodes as well. So great to have you back. Check out the Kickstarter. That's going to do it for another creator interview. And check out the past one as well if you want to learn more about Brandon. But that's going to do it for this episode. To be continued.
Thank you, Slimer. Back and better than ever, it's the Gallows Man! Witness action, humor, grotesque violence, and everything in between as the Gallows Man and his team try to stop the Nazi threat that has infiltrated their city. My producers are saying it's Adam West Batman meets Inglorious Bastards. Whatever the hell that means. Well, what are you waiting for? Help support this series by backing the Gallows Man numbers 1 through 3 over on Kickstarter today. There, I did the ad. Will you let me go now? Okay, I'll say the stupid stuff. Baby, get back. Have you ever seen a dead body? No cap, these chicken nuggies be bussin', gang. Would you like to see a dead body? Morpheus, Dorpheus, Orpheus, go eat some walruses. Someone's getting a visit from the BB monster. There, I said it all. When will you let me go?